Two of the best engineering solutions in modern eyewear were not invented by the company that dominates the industry. They were invented by outsiders, people with no factory, no funding, and, in one case, no eyewear background at all. One came from an artist and two design students in a Berlin apartment. The other from a small optical shop in Denmark that had to hire architects to pull it off. Both fixed a problem the giants had lived with for decades. Both got noticed. And here's the part you won't guess. Neither one is independent anymore. Neither was bought by the giant everyone would expect. So who took them off the board, and why? Berlin, 1996. Three friends, an artist and two design students, have an idea for a pair of glasses. Not a fashion idea, an engineering one. Every pair of glasses on Earth has the same weak point, the tiny screws in the hinges. They loosen, they strip, they fall out on a bathroom floor at the worst possible moment. The whole industry had simply accepted this as the cost of wearing glasses. Ray-Ban had screws. The cheapest drugstore readers had screws. A $500 designer frame and a $10 one shared the exact same point of failure. The three friends decided the screw itself was the flaw, so they built a hinge without one. No screw, no weld, no glue. A single piece of cold-rolled stainless spring steel that folds and locks into itself. Springy, flexible, nearly impossible to break. They took it to manufacturers. Every one of them passed. So they did the only thing left. They bought the machines and made it themselves. An apartment with a shop front in Berlin Mitte, selling frames at a launch party before a single finished pair existed. That company is EssilorLuxottica Berlin. The screwless hinge became its signature. Competitors spent the next 2 decades trying to copy it. Then, in 2023, EssilorLuxottica Berlin was acquired, not by EssilorLuxottica, the company that owns Ray-Ban, Oakley, and roughly a quarter of the entire eyewear market. It was bought by Marcolin, a different Italian giant, one of the largest frame manufacturers on Earth, the company that builds eyewear for a wall of designer labels. Hold that thought. One giant, reaching outside itself to buy a solved problem instead of solving it, because it happens again. Rewind and go north. Denmark, 1969. An optician named Poul Jorn Lindberg opens a small optical shop. He is not an engineer. He sells and fits glasses, and he watches, every single day, the same failure EssilorLuxottica Berlin would obsess over decades later. Screws working loose, frames sagging, customers coming back. But Lindberg has no factory, no R&D lab, so in the mid-1980s, he does something stranger and smarter. He hires architects, a Copenhagen firm called Dissing and Whiteling, people who designed bridges and buildings, not eyewear, to rethink the frame from zero. What they hand back has no screws and no rivets. A spiral titanium hinge, feather light, that flexes 1,000 times without wearing out. Titanium was barely used in glasses then. Lindberg built an entire company on it. His son Henrik turned that little shop into a global name, sold in more than 100 countries, holding more than 100 international design awards. An optician and a pair of architects out-engineered the industry. And in 2021, Lindberg was acquired too. Again, not by EssilorLuxottica, by Kering Eyewear, the eyewear arm of Kering, the French luxury conglomerate behind Gucci, Saint Laurent, and Balenciaga. Another giant. Same instinct. Reach out and buy the thing you didn't build. Now line them up. 2 separate breakthroughs, 2 separate outsiders, 2 separate giants that bought them. And not one of those giants was EssilorLuxottica. It would be easy to read this as proof the big company is weak. It isn't. Look closer, and every one of these players had already learned the same lesson, the one from the machine at the center of this whole industry. Owning the capability beats inventing it. That's the moat. Not the idea, the control of the idea. EssilorLuxottica built its empire buying the factories and the science that make the eyewear world run. Marcolin and Kering just ran the same play on a smaller board. A tiny company solves something genuinely hard. A giant decides it's cheaper to own the solution than to compete with it, and the independent brand stops being independent. The surprise was never that outsiders can out-engineer the giant. Outsiders do it all the time. The surprise is what happens next. The advantage is so rare that even the giant's rivals would rather buy it than risk losing to it. That's not weakness. That's the whole game. This doesn't mean EssilorLuxottica can't engineer. It employs some of the best frame and lens people alive. It means these two specific fixes surfaced outside its walls, and by the time they mattered, other giants had already moved. Great engineering can come from anywhere. A Berlin apartment, a Danish shop counter. It just rarely gets to stay small once it works. So what does it actually look like to out-engineer the eyewear giant? Not a scrappy underdog holding out forever. Not an independent brand quietly winning on the shelf. It looks like a screwless hinge from a Berlin apartment, now owned by Marcolin. A titanium hinge from a Danish shop, now owned by Kering. Two of the smartest ideas the industry ever produced, and neither one belongs to the people who had them. Out-engineering the giant doesn't mean staying small. It means getting bought before you become one.